Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Sylvan.
Building a company starts with a product, but it quickly becomes a people game. In this episode, we sit down with Samuel Berger, partner at Witena, where he helps startups and scale-ups build their executive teams and boards. He breaks down why having the right people in the right roles at the right time is often what separates companies that scale from those that stall, and why surrounding yourself with people who challenge you matters more than those who simply support you. We also unpack how to build a board that actually adds value, what to get right early, what to avoid, and how to make it a real lever for growth. If you're building, this is about one thing: getting your people decisions right. Sam, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you as a guest today.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here.
You are partner at Witena, guiding founders in shaping effective boards and leadership teams. Before you actually dove into executive search, you were also actively working with startups, scale-ups here in Switzerland. What sort of motivated that change for you to switch from scaling companies, scaling startups into executive search?
You know, I did really enjoy the first phase of my professional career. I spent there quite some years, and it was a very interesting ride, and I learned a lot. But there were mainly, let's say, three main drivers why I did that switch. One, I really learned over the years that I think the key factor for success are the people within a company. I truly believe that with the right people, you can achieve almost everything. You can even build a great company out of a bad product when you have the right people on board. And it's also true when you turn it around. So with bad people, I think you can really fuck up a company as well. My second motivation, I'm really a true believer and strong advocate when it comes to digital Switzerland. I think we have the best possibilities. We have great technical universities in Switzerland. We are very quickly in Geneva within a few hours. So we have large companies. We have political stable setup in Switzerland. So I think all the key ingredients to be world leading when it comes to technology, but I think we are not yet there. That's what I really learn when I'm traveling, and I'm traveling a lot for educational reasons. And my third driver, let's say, why I did that switch is I think we really focus the talent pipeline challenge in Switzerland. And being part, let's say, of the Generation Y in Switzerland, I think we are the generation that have to take over now for within the next 5 to 10 years. I really want to help to make that transition. And these were my main drivers, I believe, why I did that switch almost 8 years ago.
I think that's a wonderful motivation to have. With your company, with Witena, you actually focus on supervisory boards and executive committees. Why was that niche especially important in Switzerland? You said there's room for improvement on the talent side. Is that sort of the main reason why you focus on that area?
No, I mean, with Witena, we're on the market for more than 20 years now. But in the end, I think decisions are made at the very top within the company. So therefore, I think it's really crucial who has a seat at that table and who drives the strategy of a company. So naturally, it makes sense to focus there.
And whenever you place someone in a new company, you always have many things to consider, of course. But often it boils down to cultural fit. You know, does that person really fit into the company, into the culture? And of course also the skills, the competency that a person brings to the table. How do you balance these two? Because I assume you need both, but how do you actually do that when you then place someone?
I mean, it highly depends on the situation the company is in. Ideally, they bring both to the table. It's a natural cultural fit to the company, but they also have the right skill set. It really depends what the company is looking for. Sometimes it's also important, or maybe even better, let's put it that way, to bring someone on board that really challenges the founders and has a very different very different ideas to what the company has done. So it's not, maybe the cultural fit can be, we are looking for completely different element within a setup and not just copycat the existing company culture. Yeah.
If you had to choose only one of those, exceptional skills or exceptional culture fit, which one would you go for?
For me, exceptional fit includes exceptional skills. So
Okay.
I don't have to take a decision there.
Fair enough. You need both.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this culture and leadership. You treat that very seriously. I think we can already hear that. How do you evaluate the cultural fit in practice? Because many people want to do that. You try to screen in interviews, but I feel often you then only feel that after working for a few weeks, if not months together. How do you evaluate that in the evaluation phase before working with someone?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big promise that we give, and for sure it's not always that easy, but I think at its core, it's about asking the right questions. So when you are in an interview with me and I interview you for maybe a CRO role for one of my clients, I mainly focus on your first 20 years of your life. So I'm really curious, in what kind of environment were you socialized? Where did you grow up? What did your parents do? What were your passions when you were young? And I also want to learn, what were the big challenges in your life so far and how did you deal with those challenges? Did you learn something out of it or were you struggling? So I think the key takeaways I'm interested in, and we really don't talk that much about your professional career because your professional career must be convincing. Otherwise, we don't even sit at the table together.
Right.
But I really want to learn more about you as a human being, about your private life, passions. And I think it also helps that we have many touch points with you as a candidate within a process. So I approach you, we have different round of interviews. Maybe we go and play some tennis together. This can also be an option, but I really want to learn everything about you. And at the same time, also have to learn a lot about my clients, right? And
of course.
I have to challenge them. And I think in combination, we have a really good track record in finding great talents for those companies.
I like this approach of focusing on the first 20 years. What are you exactly looking for there? What are some red flags or some things that are especially convincing for you where you say, oh, this is actually a really great person that I can place here?
It's not on me to judge if someone is a great person. For me, it's more about, finding out, as I said, what is your intrinsic motivation for a specific role and for taking a challenge. Especially when you join a young company, I think it's a completely different game than when you join a large corporate. I really have to ask lots of questions around that. And maybe someone, built his first company and started selling small products at the age of 10. I don't know, maybe as a school project. I want to know about that. I think that's interesting to know.
So I assume that you want to see, is the person motivated to grow? Do they want to learn? Can they adapt? That's probably good things that you could discover there. And then on the other hand, there are also some red flags, I assume, where you say, oh, if they maybe are very money driven and the rest they don't really care about, it might not be the best fit for most of your clients, I would imagine.
That's true, but I think this problem mainly appears at the later stage of someone's career. So I think lots of, let's say, young talents are really looking to find the right access. And at the later stage in their career, I think that's what we have seen recently, right? I mean, that the idea of joining a young company is always seems to be very attractive. Have more freedom, less rules. You can wear sneakers and things like that. But I think there are also tons of challenges because when you lack of structures and maybe also working with founders, I mean, they have strong personalities. So how do I find my seat next to them, and what do I bring to the table? And it's hard work. I think it's lots of people which are not in that field. They completely underestimate the effort needed to build a company.
Absolutely. And I like this focus on the founders, because when you have a scale up, you now want to hire your first executive team or even a board for your company. There are certainly also some red flags, right? Where you say, this is a great candidate, but this candidate will never thrive in this specific founder culture. How do you go about that? Because I assume that's not a hard science. That's also a lot of gut feeling, judgment, experience that you bring to the table to read the situation correctly, whether someone will thrive in that environment or not.
That's true. I think it's again, I think it's about the intrinsic motivation of someone. I think you need to be very passionate about a product, and you need to be aware that it takes always a bit longer than you expect. Mm-hmm. And I think it's challenging if you really, come out of a corporate career and you enter a start or scale up, and you continue to live the life you used to live before, and you also you need money. It's a lot of money for that. So this can be struggling. And for that, I think it's really important to understand to what kind of adventure do you say yes. And there, I think it's all about having very, very honest discussions with candidates. That's one of my key learnings.
I see. On the other hand, you also have the founders, right? And what is maybe something that they often ignore until it's too late, that they just don't want to see or ask the uncomfortable question? What is something that they often ignore or excuse until it's too late from a founder perspective?
That's a good question, and I think there is no universal answer to your question, but something I've often taken away from conversations with founders, one is, I should have let go of employees who were not a good fit of the company much sooner. That's, I think, one takeaway.
Always. I think every founder tells me that.
Exactly. It always comes first. Right. And a second wish, I would have wished to be more challenged by the board. Mm-hmm. But maybe come to that point later, why it's important. Sure. And also something I hear very often, I should have brought best in class experience much earlier to the table. Yeah. And what do I mean with that? I think it's about having a well-designed shareholder agreement. It costs a lot if you do that too late. Yeah. Clean, reliable accounting, same there. And hiring the right employees at the right time. I mean, that's a big challenge, but it's really, really crucial for the success of a company.
Yeah. Wow, these are great points. Absolutely. And we talk about the culture, right? The company culture. So I don't only want to talk about the culture fit, but also what actually makes a great company culture that is not just great in this very moment, but that also lasts as the team grows, because that's one of the biggest challenges for many founders. They have implicitly or explicitly a culture together as a small team, then they start growing the company, and then everything falls apart because they don't focus and invest in the culture. What makes a good culture, and how do you make it last as you scale the company? It's $1 million question.
Yeah, it's $1 million question. It's a good question. So for me, I think it has a lot to do with lived values, but also with an openness to new things. Probably a combination of both. In the end, having a strong foundation that provides stability to the company, and at the same time the ability really to adapt to changing circumstances. I think that's really core.
And that's a balance to strike, right? It's not that easy, because both can also be quite a bit contradictory.
They can be, but I think they don't have to. So again, it's $1 million question. It's not an easy one to answer, but I think they can be contradicting. But I think having a good set of values and to stick to those values, but not be dogmatic about those values and the way you want to build the company. If you manage to combine those two things, I think it can be a winning combination.
Do you have any rituals or habits that you've seen with your clients and companies that you've worked with that really impressed you on how to purposefully shape and lift the culture? Any ceremony, any habit, anything that comes to mind that you thought, oh, this is a really good example on how to purposefully build a great culture?
I think it's about spending a lot of time together. I think in the end, it's about having good communication. But when it comes maybe to habits in sales, right, you can ring a bell when you win a deal, or we can do an up and cross sell. So I think it's that's something I've seen, having good offsites. I think also something I've experienced, which was great. This is also something I recommend to more established companies, is really to do tests with the core employees about how they how they think and how they act, like personality tests. I mean, it's not about you and me having like the same kind of habits to work, but I think for me it's really important to understand why you do the things you do, and maybe for you it's important to understand why do I react maybe when you say something, and so to know, let's say, the core team members is something really important.
What tests do you recommend there to use? Because there are so many out there, right, that one could use for its leadership or core team.
Yeah, well, I'm certified in Insights. That's a good test, but as you say, there are many out there. It highly depends where the focus should lie. Yeah. But there are well-established ones out there. And again, for me, I normally work with Insights.
I really like this recommendation because you just bring back a memory in me. I worked with a coach years ago. I think that must have been 7-8 years ago. And then I found I also did a personality test. I don't know which one it was, but it was so fascinating that I then basically went to the team and said, everyone on the team has to do one to understand how we can effectively collaborate and work together, because we all have different types, and the communication needed to address and really make sure that we understand what the other one needs and can really get the stuff done the right way is so different, and you need to understand it. And those tests really helped us to do that, to make sure, Sam prefers written statements to then collaborate together. He doesn't like meetings, for example. You see all these different traits in a certain way, and you can really bring your collaboration and teamwork to a next level.
I fully agree. To me, I think I have an effective management team within a company. I look at it like a puzzle. I think it's important to have different pieces, but different pieces that fit together. Yeah. And you don't want to have, let's say, 2 lawyers within the team. Maybe hopefully one is good enough. Yeah. So you need different skill sets and ideally also different personalities. Yeah. And this can be challenging, right? But I think if you manage that combination well, it's just way more powerful.
I also want to ask one last question on this culture topic, and maybe then also a provocative statement. But through Witena, Berglinde, and also the Digital Economy Award, you've been involved with many different projects. So you really have seen a lot. You have experienced many founders. What common leadership traits do successful founders share? What's sort of your common denominator across successful founders?
Successful founders tend to share a clear vision. They are very strong when it comes to resilience, high learning agility and willingness. Also, I think it's about being able to navigate uncertainty, because this is something you face every day. And I think a people-centric leadership style also really helps to shape and to grow a company.
Beautiful. Yeah, this is a really great summary. One thing comes to mind. Recently on LinkedIn, I saw 2 different posts. One was, I think, a Substack post. The other one was on LinkedIn. And the one on LinkedIn said basically, hey, many of the Silicon Valley founders, it's a bit, over-exaggerated, obviously, for clickbait purposes on LinkedIn. But they basically said, hey, most of the great founders, they lead in a almost dictatorship way. They say, we go there, and if you don't follow, you're sort of out. I felt that was very dangerous to sort of proclaim that, because it goes a bit against what you just said. So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on such a statement. Is that a good way to move faster and break things and really build a big company? Or is that something that you will pay way bigger later because it will bite you in your ass?
Oh, it's an amazing question, because it probably relates to Elon Musk, right?
Probably. I don't know where it came from.
People like that. No, I think it's maybe I missed that element. I think it's also really, really important that you have an opinion as a founder and that you are able to make a call. Yeah. I think not being able to take decisions and is really, really bad for any company. For sure. In any stage. So I think having a people-centric way of growing a company, listening to people, wanting to be a good employer, I think also maybe involves to communicate clearly. And sometimes good communication is we do now this or we do that, and we don't do this and we don't do that. I think it's this must be included. Perfect point.
Because I feel here in Switzerland, we are very consensus driven. We want to make sure we don't step on anyone's toe, that everyone is on board. But this is like the opposite of what we just discussed, right? So the Substack post that I mentioned is then also, they said you shouldn't ask for feedback. You should just make a decision, build it, and then learn as you go. So sometimes I feel maybe we are a bit too consensus driven here, given our Swiss culture, that we take too long or we are too defensive to take a bold decision.
Yeah, I agree. I think to have, the buy-in of a team can really help to achieve your goals.
Of course.
But yeah, again, sometimes I think it just makes more sense to be very clear. And in the end, I mean, it's your responsibility to guide the team and to guide the company together with the board. And yeah, sometimes it's not in the interest of every single employee in the company. So if you ask them, 10 people, then different opinions.
Exactly. Half tell you to go left, the other half tells you to go right. It's what should you do?
Exactly. I think it's important that people feel involved. And very often, I think they also come up with great ideas.
Of course.
But in the end, there's a reason why you're the CEO. And I think one core element of being a good leader is being able to take decisions.
Yeah. Fully agree.
And taking decisions. Yeah.
Good point. You mentioned the board. That's another core topic I would like to learn from you today. Because in startups and scale-ups, boards are often seen as a formality. It's like, okay, I have to do it because the law requires it, but I don't really leverage or invest too much. I just want to get the legal procedures done and that's it. When does it make generally sense for a startup or a scale-up to really invest in a board, and when does a board start to move the needle for my company? Is that already from the very beginning, or is there a certain threshold where you say, hey, now a board really starts to make a difference?
Hopefully from right at the beginning, but I think latest when you reach the first funding round, I think it's crucial to have a good people on the board. When you look at the young companies, very often and how the board is constituted, it's mainly very often friends and family, maybe first small investors. So mainly you have the fans, your personal fans in the board. Yeah. But I think in order to build a good company, it's good to have fans, but I think you need quality in the board. Yeah. And people that are able to criticize you, to challenge you. I think the board is very, very, very important for a start and scale up.
So tell me the composition of a board. What's the ideal setup? How many people? What should their background, their roles be? How does the perfect board look like?
It highly depends on the stage you're in when you build a company. Ideally, there are around 5 to 7 people. Ideally, there are lots of changes in the board, not at the same time, but on a regular basis. So there always needs to be one in the board that has been in the board for many years. Mm-hmm. And then that guy should probably leave at one moment in time, and someone else should be the one that has been with the company for 5, 6, 7 years. And new capabilities, new skills come in. And I think it's really important that this is on the daily agenda of the board to think about what's best for the company, what's the next phase we enter, what kind of skills and qualities do we need, what kind of network do we need to bring to the table. I think these are the core questions that you need to ask yourself.
It's the same as for your management team, right? Whether you're an early stage startup or a scale up doing 3-digit million in revenue, you need very, very different skill sets. What are the roles that you want to have in that board? Do you look for industry connections or network? Do you look for a law background? Do you look for people who have product or sales know-how, or a mix of all of those, basically?
In the end, it comes again to the point that it highly depends where you are as a company. When it comes to funding rounds, it's probably good to have a lawyer within your board that has good connections. Ideally, I love to work with people that have already done, let's say, that already went through certain stages with a company, that know how to close a first round, that know how to enter a new market in Germany or the UK, what's needed, and have the network and know the pitfalls and the challenges. That's the reason why I was saying that. I think it's important to always have on the radar what kind of skills do we need. And I think it's not being part of a board in a start and scale up. You shouldn't do that because of your ego, and you shouldn't do it because of the money. I think it's always about the contribution that you can bring to the table. Yeah, it's all about that. And maybe you can really bring massive value to the table for only a year, and then it would be just fair and honest to leave the board again.
Of course,
and to bring someone new to the board that has experience and for next phase you're entering as a company.
But that really takes the right kind of people to not put their ego first, but actually the company.
That's true. And I know, unfortunately, I know lots of really, really good board members that truly believe that this is the right way and these are the right reasons for being in a board, but they also do know a few other examples.
Of course. Part of the game.
Yeah, part of the game.
What are the mistakes that founders often make out there when it comes to setting up but also working with their boards? I'm sure you've seen many examples there as well. What are the common mistakes that founders make?
They want to be liked.
Oh yeah, classic.
And they also feel obligated to certain people. Like maybe your uncle that gave you the first 50K for your company.
Oh man, yeah.
I think I understand why they do that, but for the company, I think it's not ideal. Yeah.
It's also, and I think that's why the outside perspective is so important. Often if I see someone else in that problem zone with the uncle and they should get rid of the uncle because he's not adding value, it's easy to see it from the outside. But when you're the founder, you're in it, it's very difficult sometimes to see it and to do the right thing, because you're just like, no, we have this to do and that to do. And you just don't see the forest because of all the trees in front of you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I mean, it's kind of probably quite natural that you love to surround you with people that admire you, that love you, that give you a good feeling. But I think, again, I think it's not ideal for the company. I think you just need the right experience, the right skill sets, and you also need someone that really challenges you as a founder. There are so many topics, and I mean, I admire founders. I think it's amazing that there are so many good people out there that come up with a good idea based on their PhD thesis, and they want to solve a problem. So they normally don't lack of self-confidence, founders, and I think that's good. But lots of elements they've never done before.
Of course.
And I think in order to build a successful company, you have to tick so many different boxes. So you want to have a board that challenges you, that is uncomfortable in a constructive way.
Absolutely. Do you see any difference between Swiss founders, how they approach the board versus people abroad and founders abroad?
Honestly, I don't know. But what I know is that when you, like, serial founders, they do it differently.
Okay. Yeah.
There I've seen many really good examples. But many things also become easier, right? When you do things for the second time. And also when it comes to how you constitute a board, they would probably, most of them would agree what I was saying. I think, it's about quality and not about friends.
Definitely. We already talked a bit about the board composition, etc. But so let's assume I now have the board together. I know we need to rotate, etc. But now I want to get operational. What's the best structure to really get the maximum value out of my board? how often do we meet, how long do we meet, etc.
Yeah, I think having very regular meetings is important. Obviously, highly depends on, again, on the stage and the topics that you have on the table. So maybe in a sales process of the company, you probably meet on a daily basis. But
Of course.
let's assume it's regular business. I think having a board meeting every 4 weeks, I guess, is enough. Maybe spending a half a day, but it needs obviously good preparation. I think it's really important to have a very clear agenda, and also being very clear what should be the outcome. What kind of topics do we need an answer now? And also something I experienced, which I think is a great tool, is to build working groups on specific topics. So it can be maybe a market entry topic. Not all the board members bring their value to the table, but maybe some of them do, and to involve them to those discussions, I think that's something that works really well.
I do have a follow-up question there, because sometimes you see in like a TV show or something, you see the board and basically all the decisions they have already happened before, because people were talking informally before the board meeting. So how much of discussion should you actually have in a board meeting and just have the preparation before, but then actually discuss and make the decision there? And how much already happens before the board meeting in an informal setting, and then you just do the formalization of the decision in the actual board meeting?
Well, I think it's quite normal that the board members have certain discussions with the founders and with other board members before an official board meeting. I think this is not always something that is positive. Let's put it that way. You don't want to build groups within the board. Yeah. But at the same time, I think it can be important to learn more about the positions of others, why they are convinced we should do this or that. But anyway, I think it's important to be prepared before you go to a board meeting. Not, tomorrow we have the board meeting. Oh, what are the topics? No, you should come in being prepared as a board member, and having a clear idea, but also again the openness maybe to change position when you discuss a specific topic. But I would expect that you have an opinion. Yeah.
Great, because it would change the board's role dramatically, right? If you make the decisions before, then you just formalize it versus actually discussing and deciding in the board meeting itself.
Yeah.
You said it's important to also change the board members on a regular basis. I think as a company grows, that's equally important for the executive team of a company. So you're entering scale-up mode, and your company probably looks very different when you have 2 to 5 million in revenue versus 100 million in revenue, hopefully one day. So the succession topic is a very important topic to make sure you have the right people in the right seat at the right time. What is something that founders might not necessarily, address well, or where they might just not be the best fit anymore for the company? How do you see that in practice? Because the founder, they started the company, but scaling to 5 million or even 100 million, the founders might not be the best fit anymore.
That's true. What I've seen is that they start this process way too late, normally. Yeah. I think but also the duty of the board to challenge you as a founder very early on. And I think it's important to understand your motivation. I think sometimes it's good, being on a learning journey together with you as a founder. But sometimes a learning journey can be a very expensive journey. So maybe makes more sense that you as a founder just change your role within the company. You can maybe become COO or you switch to the board. But I think the main intention should always be what's best for the company. Again, there, I think ego really doesn't
Ego
help.
is the enemy.
Exactly.
In that sense, no matter whether you're a founder or just a regular executive board member, what is sort of a sign that you say, hey, it's time for a change now? It's probably too late when you see that sign, and you should have already acted before. But what are clear indicators that, hey, this person is not the right fit for the role anymore? How do you see that in practice?
I think it has to do with the motivation and the willingness to address the challenges and the energy you bring to the table. And also the way you discuss challenges. Are you constructive or not?
Mm-hmm.
Do you still believe in the mission you're on?
No.
Or not anymore? I think these are critical questions you have to ask yourself. Yeah.
And in that sense, I think you also have a lot of family businesses that you have worked with in the past or that you have seen.
Yeah.
What can startups learn from family businesses? Because they have this same succession topic and they also have to figure it out and solve it. Is there something that startups can learn from family businesses and vice versa?
You know, maybe I'm not answering exactly the question you're asking, but I think it's really, really important. What's the main reason why you start a business? When I look at family business that I admire because they did an amazing job for the last 50 years, 100 years.
It's crazy.
There's so many good examples out there. I think they just have a different approach to build a company. And it's about what's the right thing to do, what kind of decisions do I have to take today that the company still exists in 10 years' time? What needs to be done that you, as my son, can take over a healthy company in 15 years from now? And I think so this long-term vision and not being forced to come up with those crazy results immediately. And this is something I see very often in start and scale-ups. You raise money from investors, and very often you come up with, let's say, with a best case scenario. Very often you don't, let's say, end up there. So you're always massively under pressure. And this is something I think more established companies do better, especially privately owned companies. Obviously, companies that are on the stock exchange, they also act differently. Yeah. But I think it's amazing when you have the time to build a good company, and you don't have to build and sell within 7 years. I don't know if that's the most sustainable way to build a good company.
I love that. It's the long-term thinking and the patience to get there. But honestly, with the startups, I also blame the VCs a bit because they just don't care. They say we need one outlier returning the whole fund. The rest we don't really care. So then you also have this pressure of what could have maybe developed into a fantastic business over 10, 15 years. But because the fund timeline is only 7 years, they let you fall before you actually make it there. And then you just go bust.
Or you enter a new fund.
Exactly.
So, but maybe I think at the beginning, it comes down to the question, what kind of investors you want to onboard.
Yeah.
And what's their agenda. So everyone you involve, if it's investor or a new CEO or CFO, I think it's important to understand their agendas. And this highly determines, let's say, how the company will evolve and how much time you have to build a healthy company. Yeah.
This brings me to one of my favorite topics, incentives. I feel incentives, if you get them right, they are probably, you're already halfway where you want to be. They are so important because in tough times, no matter what happens, people will probably behave the way that they are incentivized. So it's really important to make sure that they are aligned and you're sitting in the same boat. At the same time, it's not as easy to solve that puzzle of incentives. How do you do that? With the management team where you have regular changes, because founders usually have quite a significant amount of stocks, then maybe they have to shift their role, maybe even leave the company at one point. How do you incentivize the new management team members to make sure that they also have skin in the game and upside and not a feeling that, oh, I now just work and the founders get rich, but they're not even operationally involved with the company anymore?
Yeah. That's a really good question. And I think there are many different ways of how you can do that. Obviously, you can just give them some shares. Maybe they are vested. You can give them phantom stocks. You just give them, let's say, a bonus in a form of cash. It really depends what also the shareholder agreement allows you to do, right? Yeah. It's also something I see very often when it comes to companies that are looking for a replacement of one of the founders, right? Yeah. The expectations are always really, really high, when it comes to the profile, but the possible participation, let's say, of the new CEO coming in does not keep pace with the expectations.
Exactly.
And I think to balance that out is a big challenge. And maybe you as a founder that successfully found a company and now they have 200 employees, I mean, you can be very proud of your achievement, but maybe you've been exactly the right person for that phase.
Yep.
And I think sometimes maybe you end up in a mistake that you know everything and that you also have the experience now to scale the company even further from 200 to 2,000 people, right?
And maybe you don't.
Maybe you don't. Maybe you can learn it, right? But maybe it's the better way to onboard someone that has done that journey already.
One thing I like to see in practice, I rarely see Swiss startups doing that the right way, because often the founders just sit on their shares, then they hire someone, could be a COO, a CEO, whoever, or a full management team, and they just give them some little percentage. They say, here you get like maybe 1%, maybe 3% of the company, but not really a significant portion. Then they start, they think, cool, I have shares, but then 2-3 years in, they see the value they generate because the plan is working, and then they get really demotivated because they think, hey, I get my 3% of the company, I work my ass off, but at the same time, the founder who is now just, in quotation marks, just in the board, not operation involved anymore, they have 20%. So they make so much more money based on the valuation compared to me actually doing the work. So what I would like to see in companies is then saying, the founders who leave operation, or even management members who leave operationally, they say, I sell my shares at the current valuation or a big part of them. So the new management team members, they have to invest, they have to put money on the table to buy those shares, but then participate in an almost equal or very high percentage of the future upside from here when they are in a driver's seat. I don't see that happen that often. Why is that? Because I feel that way you could really solve the incentive problem, but it's probably ego again of the founders to sell a big chunk of the shares where they feel like, no, I'm the founder, I earned that.
Yeah, maybe that's one aspect, but I think the other is also, you need to be able to pay for those shares.
Of course.
Because they have a certain evaluation and who can afford to buy them, right? I mean,
there you find solutions. You can say,
you can. I
give you a pay in cash, and the rest we keep as a loan or whatsoever.
No, that's true. That's true. But I think still the hurdle can be really high to do that for both parties.
Yeah.
It comes down to the question. I mean, I understand, let's say, a CEO that complains about that, but my answer would be, well, it's completely up on you maybe to build your own company.
Sure.
And start from scratch, right? I mean, no one forces you to work for that company.
Yeah.
And also the question, maybe it's more interesting to have a small piece of something big than having a big piece of something that is worth nothing. So
of course. But I mean, we always complain in Switzerland that we say we don't have bigger scale-ups, you don't have bigger companies. And then I think, why is that? Like, we have amazing technologies, amazing founders. So we really get from 0 to 1 to something that is working. But then from 1 to 100, very few actually make it. Of course, capital is an issue, but also people who have done that before. How amazing would it be? We get the best American operators who have scaled companies in the US to thousands of employees, hundreds of millions, if not billions in revenue. But those people, they can choose where they want to work. So if you offer them 3% of your company to bring that skill set and bring your valuation from maybe 100 to billions, of course they want to get paid more. So I feel that also hinders us from an ecosystem perspective because we don't get the incentives, right? That people then don't get the best people in the world who have walked that path before.
I believe we are getting there. I think we become better.
Yeah.
We have lots, let's say, of very successful founders that went abroad and now come back, and they bring that experience to the table. So, I mean, it can make us very proud that we have those founders. Yeah. But I think maybe for first-time founders, that maybe they look at this challenge in a different way than someone that has already done it, right? And I think gaining that experience and learning maybe from those that have already done it in a very successful way, that's something that we can build on now.
No, I fully agree. I mean, we have amazing success stories, and the best that we can see from an ecosystem perspective is those people coming back and investing their time and money into the next generation of founders.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, I feel that's one part of the puzzle. I think we also need the actual operators, people who actually did that before, who work full-time operation in the company to then take the company there.
Yeah.
I think you need both.
We need both, and very often successful founders just start their own second company. Yeah. And yeah, it's interesting. As I mentioned, I do some educational trips on a very regular basis, and in the last year I went a couple of times to Sweden. Sweden has a really cool startup and scale up scene, some very successful companies.
Yeah, Lovable is very hot right now, for example.
Yeah, so now it really fascinates me, and because I think we have in Switzerland, we even have, let's say, the better setup than in Sweden. We have the better airport, we have more companies, blah blah blah. And the taxes are lower than in Sweden. So why do they stay there and build other companies? And I think it has a lot to do with also the access to the right talents, and they have also some really good technological universities in Sweden. Yeah. And the fact that successful founders found again and again and again and again, and they also, what you mentioned, sell some of their stakes they have within a company, and give other people the opportunity to learn and grow. The outcome is that they are more, let's say, very talented and experienced founders and managers for scale-ups that can, again, come up with new companies at a later stage.
So what do we need to do here in Switzerland to get there or even surpass Sweden in that sense?
It's also $1 million question. Probably have to, the many different aspects that we need to take into consideration answering that. So I think one is probably, it comes down probably to the mindset of Switzerland. So really giving us a chance to win, to become number one. I think we have a unique opportunity as Switzerland to run pilots to improve the cool technologies that we have with Swiss companies, because the market is too small to just live from the Swiss market, but we are close to those companies. We can improve the technologies that we have in order to have a good product for the global rollout. That's one thing. And yeah, thinking big, bringing in experienced leaders from abroad, from the US, maybe from Sweden, involve them, make it attractive for them to come to Switzerland and scale a business. Maybe these are some ingredients, yeah.
For sure. If I may add one there, I think the building bridge could be also pushing for more secondaries, because what I see Swiss founders often do is they get heavily invested in their own company. They take out the lowest salary possible. And then when they get an acquisition offer, the first one, they're like, oh my God, this is life-changing. I want to sell my company. And they sell way too early. And then all the future upside happens with the American company that just bought them, as an example.
Fully agree.
So if we allow them to do secondaries, to take some money off the table, to then have the luxury of being invested into building a massive company out of Switzerland in the long run, I think that could really bridge that gap to say, hey, I have some money off the table, but not enough that I get too comfortable, but enough to sleep well at night. Now the first acquisition offer, I don't care. This is way too low because we have higher ambitions. We want to be number one. And then you go and build that, and eventually you will make it. That could be a missing puzzle piece in that equation.
Yeah, perfect. No, I fully agree. Good point.
We have some work to do.
Yeah, we have still have some work to do.
At the same time, the Swiss ecosystem also has developed incredibly well over the past years. I know we can talk about things that we can improve, etc., but maybe also focus on the good things. What have you seen in the ecosystem that really makes you happy the way things are going and where you see the development is heading in the right direction?
Yeah. It was funny. Just yesterday, I've read that IMD just currently ranked Switzerland #1 in the world digital competitiveness ranking. This came a bit as a surprise for me. I didn't expect that, but I mean, it's really cool. I think we have a really cool founder culture now in Switzerland, and we also learned to celebrate the founders. I think we have two of the best technical universities on earth with EPFL and ETH. I think we lowered the hurdles in the last years to run pilots with large companies. Yeah. So it became much easier, I think, really to develop, let's say, with end user feedback, even better solutions. This became much easier. We also, I think, do better now when it comes to following rounds. It was always easy in Switzerland to finance and to start a company to a certain stage, but when the larger tickets were required, the companies were always forced to move abroad and to get the money from the US and also then relocate the headquarters to the US. So I think we really improved there a lot in the last years.
But there's also still some room to improve further.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sam, if we wrap up the episode today before heading into the rapid fires, I want to ask you if you could give only one piece of advice to a founder. It can be about leadership, about hiring, succession, or anything you would like to help them with. What's your one piece of advice to founders here in Switzerland?
It has to be on their agenda. It has to be on their agenda from a very early stage of the company. It needs to be a topic. I think having the right talents in the board, in the management team is really, really crucial to build a successful company. And you really this needs to be a focus of your work as a founder. And if you have questions there, just call me up.
Amazing. Because it's so funny, right? First, you have to find something that works with your product, with your offering, whatever.
Yeah.
But once you have that, then it's basically becoming a hiring game to have the right people at the right time in the right seat to build a successful company.
Exactly.
That's it. Sounds easy, but it's really, really hard to do.
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Exactly. So I also want to ask you some Swiss-focused rapid-fire questions.
Cool, yeah.
I just start with the first one. What's your favorite Swiss food?
Elplermakronen.
Nice, classic. What is the most underrated Swiss value in leadership?
Reliability.
Yeah, I love that. What's your favorite place in Switzerland to escape after a tough search or board mandate?
Mountains. I love to go to cloisters and seals.
Beautiful area. Raclette or fondue?
Raclette.
Clear choice. And what's one Swiss founder that you think people should watch? There are many, I know.
Yeah.
Just pick one.
Oh, no, there are too many.
A very diplomatic Swiss answer.
Yeah. No, it's. I cannot say that. I don't know. There are too many.
Okay.
Yeah, which is good.
Sure. Yeah, it's good for the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And the last question for you today: how Swiss is too Swiss when hiring for a scale-up?
Writing a cover letter and references.
Yeah. Fair enough. Sam, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
All the
pleasure.
best. And
thank you very
success.
much.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.